I really didn't expect my last Neospatian video to do so well, but hey, I guess life really is full of surprises. So here I am, more than 3 weeks later, making a part 2. You know, I really have to get good at timing these videos. Guess you ought to subscribe in order to see that growth. Also like the video too, and comment down below whether this archetype is a capital W or a lowercase l. Also thanks for the 200 subs. Now in this video, I'll be covering the archetype I made back when I was taking a marine biology class in high school. But before that, I want to address some things in part 1. Much like this commenter and so many others pointed out, I forgot to mention favorite contact, so allow me to do that here. Favorite contact is a trap card that allows you to special summon one fusion monster from your extra deck that lists a hero monster as fusion material. In order to do this, you have to place the materials from your hand, field, graveyard, or banished at the bottom of your deck. And if you used elemental hero Neos as a material, then the fusion monster cannot be returned to the extra deck. Overall, it's a very net positive for the archetype, and it's another card I want added into Duel Links. Also, the same commenter provided another solution to the Chrysalis monsters introduced in part 1, a solution that was actually pretty unique in its approach, opting to give the Chrysalis monsters 2 or more effects, letting you add one Neo spell or trap card from your hand to your deck if you tribute it for a Neospatian. Another version of this effect was the exact same thing, but instead of adding a spell or trap, you add another Neospatian. And after reading both, I still prefer the first effect. The last effect was to let the player draw one card after actually tribute summoning the Neospatian. We've got some pretty good ideas here. I pretty much hit the nail on the head for what Neos should be getting nowadays, and when I make part 3 I'll be covering all of this. But let's get back to the main subject here, or more specifically, the Yu-Gi-Oh archetype I created. It's called the Marine Martian archetype, and now that I think about it, that would be a pretty awful name if you swap the 3 M's with 3 K's. I also made it in the format of speed duels, most prominently used in Duel Links. The archetype itself doesn't have any real lore to it, other than the classic sea creatures get superpowers through some cosmic means and end up having space-related names. Although I will say, the one interesting thing here is the new compound fusion, which I'll explain later. The archetype is pretty loosely based on the Neospatians, essentially using their core concepts while removing the clear downsides. This will show in the fusions, by the way, but for the most part, this entire archetype is essentially its own thing, having monsters with actually decent effects that don't make you want to find out the taste of a shotgun barrel. Speaking of which, the first monster in this archetype, and also its ace, is Roblox hero Triton. His effect allows you to special summon it from your hand by tributing one face-up Marine Martian you control. You can also draw one card if this one is shuffled into the extra deck as fusion material. If his effects sound similar, then it should, because it's actually the rework effect I pitched in part 1. Oh, he's also level 7 and boasts 2100 attack and 1900 defense. The second monster is the first of the Marine Martians, and is called Marine Martian Dancer. It gains 100 attack and defense for each card in the field, and during each of your end phases, he'll screw over your opponent by inflicting 300 damage for each Marine Martian you control. This effect is kind of overpowered until you realize this monster only has 600 attack and defense, and the second effect is only good if you have like 2 copies of this card. Next up, we got Marine Martian Cosmic Coral, a monster that lets you shuffle one Marine Martian you control back into the deck and gain life points equal to the shuffled monster's attack. Not really a good thing when it's the only card both in your hand and on your field, especially when it has 0 attack and defense, but hey, it'll help make the duel last longer if you have these cards on your field. Marine Martian Cobalt Crusher is next on the list, letting you automatically destroy a monster this card battles, and if for some reason this card is destroyed, you can return it and another Marine Martian from your graveyard to your hand. Also, a common theme with these Marine Martians is their laughable attack and defense, as well as the fact that they're all level 3. Marine Martian Starboard Seagull probably has one of the highest attack out of all of them though, with an effect that's completely ripped off from Aqua Dolphin, letting you discard one Marine Martian from your hand to destroy one random card in your opponent's hand, pretty much removing the backfire cost of Aqua Dolphin's effect while still giving you the reason it was played during tournaments. Marine Martian Constellar Jellyfish is next, and it's also a ripoff too, allowing you to make this card's name and effects the exact same as another monster until the end phase, which seems pretty counterproductive when this is the only card on the field. Marine Martian Mary Lily probably has the best effect out of the first 6 Marine Martians introduced, mostly because it actually displays a good balance between gimmicky effects and legitimate consistency, allowing you to shuffle one Marine Martian from your graveyard into your deck to attack your opponent directly, making this card a good contender for Power of the Guardians, although its attack is still pretty laughable, basically doing the equivalent of stepping on someone's shoes. What doesn't do this though is Marine Martian Pelagic Orbiters, because it only shields you from any battle damage you would take if this card was destroyed and sent to the graveyard, or it was banished. Its second effect allows you to banish this card from the graveyard if another Marine Martian you control were to be destroyed by battle, effectively letting you stall out the duel unless your opponent was smart enough to use a monster that can attack more than once, or just have more than 2 monsters on the field, which nowadays that's not difficult to do. Marine Martian Astronomer is also a ripoff of a Neos card, only this time it's not Neospatian, with the exact same effect as the rework effect I pitched for the card it's ripping off, with an added bonus of adding Roblox hero Triton from either your deck or graveyard to your hand. I guess if it ain't broke, then don't fix it. Marine Martian Milky Way is probably my favorite out of all the Marine Martians, solely for the fact that its name actually plays into its effect, letting letting you add 1 Marine Martian from your deck to your hand when this card is normal or special summoned. You can also tribute Milky Way to special summon 1 Marine Martian or Roblox Hero Triton from your graveyard. Oh, by the way, this card's also a ripoff, unlike Marine Martian Bottom Feeder, who lets you add 1 spell or trap card from your deck to your hand that specifically lists Roblox Hero Triton in its text, after it's normal summoned of course, and its second effect allows you to banish this card from the graveyard to shuffle 1 spell or trap card that lists Marine Martian in its text back into your deck, basically letting you use something like this twice. And now that I think about it, this is probably the best Marine Martian out of all of them. Wish I could say the same thing for Marine Martian Flipper, although I'll give him some credit since his effect isn't even all that bad, allowing you to switch this card to defense position when it gets attacked, as well as special summon 1 Roblox Hero Triton from your deck. And from this point onward, take a shot for every ripoff card I mentioned so far, as well as for every card I mentioned earlier, which will be 4. 5 if you count this one too. Now I'm not saying this to make it a fun drinking game or anything, but because this would be a very funny way of indirectly killing someone. On another note, Marine Martian Riptide is the last Marine Martian we'll be talking about, and it's also a ripoff card, so that'll be another shot for you. This card lets you discard it to the graveyard to add 1 Hado Zone spell card from your deck or graveyard to your hand. You can also banish it to prevent the destruction of a Hado Zone spell card you control, which is a lot better than the rework effect I pitched in part 1. And now that I finished the monster section for this archetype, let's take a moment of silence for the fact that my teenage self couldn't come up with more creative effects. The Hado Zone is the first spell of the archetype and probably the least original. Also, you have to take another shot because this card is a ripoff too. It states that all Marine Martians you control gain 500 attack and defense and lets you summon another Marine Martian once per turn, which comes with no cost by the way. We can also ignore the last effect since none of the fusions had the end phase shuffle effect. Of course, this field spell is relatively decent if you have either of these cards in your hand, and its lack of a cost certainly puts it higher than this one on the totem pole for field spells. Pocket Hado Zone is next, and now you have to take another shot because of it. Again, let's ignore the end phase shuffle effect on this card, and instead focus our attention on the fact that the fusion monster this card is equipped to gains 500 attack and defense, as well as a protection effect in case it were to be destroyed by battle. Now obviously this card would have to be in the graveyard to use this effect, but I still think it's worth noting. Then you can special summon 1 Roblox Hero Triton from your hand, deck, or graveyard, but you already knew that was coming. What you didn't see coming, however, was an original card. Mostly. See, Solar Phytoplankton is a spell card that lets you choose one of 2 effects. A. Special summon 1 Marine Martian from your hand or graveyard, or B. Return up to 2 Marine Martians from your graveyard to your deck. The first effect is pretty standard for any archetype, but it's really the second effect that hits you right in the funny bone if you have any one of these in your hand. Speaking of which, Aquatic Fusion is up next and it's time to add another digit to the shot count. Its effect is pretty much the same thing as Neos Fusion, with the only difference being the fact that it's an actual fusion summon this time, and that you're using this guy instead of this guy. Halo Contact is pretty much in the same category, but with a couple of key differences. Number 1, take another shot, and number 2, you can only use monsters on your field or in your graveyard to special summon, so you can't use anything in your hand as material. If you're starting to get drunk, then thank your lucky stars because the next card we'll be talking about is actually original. Cosmic Seaweed is a pretty simple spell card, letting you gain 1,000 life points for each Marine Martian you control. You can also banish it from your graveyard to target 1 Marine Martian you control and have it gain 1,000 attack and defense for each Marine Martian in your graveyard. Now I'll admit this second effect is pretty overpowered, especially if you intend on using cards like this, but at least you can actually get something out of the support card, unlike some others. Salinity changes next, as well as another shot, as its second effect is almost identical to Convert Contact, with the only difference being the fact that you can discard 1 Marine Martian instead of 2. Although I will say the first effect is somewhat original, letting you add 1 Marine Martian from your deck to your hand. Kinda lazy, I know, but in my defense, it pairs really well with this card. Lucky Current is next, and don't worry, you don't have to take a shot this time, because instead of just ripping off instant contact, it only takes inspiration from it. See, we learn and grow on this channel. Speaking of which, you should like and subscribe and comment down below. Lucky Current allows you to special summon 1 Roblox Hero Triton from your hand, deck, or graveyard. And since it's a quick play spell, you can also use it as a bailout in case you're in a situation similar to this. Marine Network also works like that, but in a different way. Since it's a continuous spell, you'll have to deal with it staying in one of your spell and trap zones until your opponent inevitably destroys it next turn. But hey, look on the bright side. You can special summon 1 Marine Martian from your deck to your field in face up defense position, and you can also tribute 1 Marine Martian you control to inflict damage to your opponent, equal to the tributed Marine Martian's attack, which will probably amount to nothing given the attack of those cards, but hey, it's the little things that count. Or at least, wait, no, I've already used that joke before. What I haven't mentioned before is a spell card known as Dead Zones. It's a spell card that allows you to send as many Marine Martians from your hand or deck to the graveyard to destroy cards your opponent controls. The amount of cards destroyed is equal to the amount of Marine Martians you sent. The 7 Galaxies is up next, and unfortunately you don't have to take another shot. But what you can do is shuffle all cards from your graveyard and or banished back into your deck, with the added bonus of special summoning 1 Roblox Hero Triton, as well as 2 Marine Martians I might add. Best part is, this spell is a quick play spell, and you can activate it when you're close to losing. Another quick play spell in this archetype is the Big Bang. It lets you pay half your life points to shuffle all cards on the field into the owner's decks, basically resetting the duel itself, except for the life points. You also cannot normal summon or special summon any monsters that don't have Marine Martian or Roblox Hero in their name. Asteroid Shells is the first equipped spell to be mentioned, and prevents the equipped monster from being destroyed by battle once. Also, this card can only be equipped to a Marine Martian. The same clause applies to Gill Nuts as well, another equipped spell in the archetype, which grants the equipped monster 900 attack and defense. And if the equipped monster were to destroy an opponent's monster by battle, then you get to inflict an extra 500 damage. Pouring salt on the wound, as some boomers would say. If the equipped monster were to be destroyed, then you can just send this card instead and make the battle damage 0, providing a fairly useful scapegoat in the right situation. Imperial Swordfish is the last equipped spell in this archetype, granting the equipped monster 900 attack as well, with an added bonus of attacking your opponent directly. And if your opponent just so happens to punch down with one of their high level monsters, this card will gain 1000 attack during damage calculation only. I think the only change I'd make to this card would have to be lowering the attack boost of 900 down to maybe like 300, just so that it's not too powerful. Meticulous Food Web is probably the most interesting spell card here in terms of game design. You can target up to 7 Marine Martians with different attack in your graveyard and shuffle them into the top of your deck in any order. And if you control no monsters, then you can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon 1 Roblox Hero Triton from your hand, deck, or graveyard. The reason I say this is the most interesting is because it plays into the style of the deck, which is mostly recycling and special summoning. What makes it unique, however, is the fact that you have to be in a certain situation to actually use it, a situation that can be caused by more than 5 different cards. I may be shooting some arrows in the dark with this tangent, but I thought it was pretty interesting. Hydro Space Shuttle is another continuous spell, in which you can reveal 1 Roblox Hero Fusion monster in your extra deck that lists Roblox Hero Triton as fusion material, and special summon all the required materials listed on that card. Now, while you may think this card is overpowered, you'd be surprised at how often continuous spells are actually destroyed in Duel Links. But, out of principle in changing the last few cards, I'll change this one too, and make it so that you can only special summon the Marine Martian listed on the card. Sudden Tsunami is not a quick play spell, despite having the word sudden in its name. It lets you special summon 2 Marine Martians from your deck, with the only requirement being that you can't control any monsters. And when this card is in the graveyard, you can special summon 3 Marine Martians from your graveyard in face-up defense position, but their effects are negated. Of course, you can only use each effect once per turn, making it a solid reminder that there's always another way. Bottom Trolling is the last spell card, and it probably has the most straightforward effect, letting you reveal the top 3 cards in your deck, and then having your opponent pick one of them randomly to add to your hand, and the other 2 cards will bite the dust at the bottom of your deck. Yeah, I wasn't kidding when I said that this card was pretty straightforward. The first trap on this list is Aquatic Signal, and luckily for the viewer, you get to take another shot. Wish I could do the same since I've been talking for the past 10 minutes. Anyways, the trap only activates when a monster you control is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, and its effect special summons a Marine Martian from either your hand or your deck, providing a fairly solid bailout unless your opponent has a piercing effect. Call of Brine is up next, allowing you to special summon all the fusion materials listed on a Roblox Hero fusion monster from your extra deck after revealing it. Of course, they're all in face-up defense position because why not? And I wish I could change the requirements to be a monster that specifically lists Roblox Hero Triton as fusion material. That way the card wouldn't be banned. Bermuda's Triangle is exactly how it sounds. Also, take another shot because this card is based on Neospace Road. Its effect is pretty standard, only activating after a Marine Martian or Roblox Hero Triton you control is destroyed and not before, and having the effect of returning that destroyed monster to your hand as well as drawing 1 card. Aliens of the Deep is up next, and before you say anything, yes, this card is another ripoff, so take another shot, and yes, the name is taken after a movie. Its effect is pretty much the same as next, with the only difference being that you can only special summon Marine Martians and not Roblox Roblox Hero Trident. Spatial Whirlpool is another trap, and unlike its predecessor, it's actually original, with its effect allowing you to shuffle 5 cards from your graveyard back into your deck, and afterwards add either 2 Marine Martians or 1 Roblox Hero Trident from your deck to your hand. Pretty standard, and now that I think about it, I ripped off Jar of Avarice when making this card, so never mind, you actually do have to take another shot. At least you won't have to take another shot with Estuary Nursery though, as all it does is prevent your Marine Martians from being destroyed by battle. It also has a negate effect built into it, so that's pretty neat. Even neater is that negate effect actually prevents a Marine Martian you control from being targeted by a card effect. Emergence of Trident is the last trap card and also the last of this section. Thank God. You can activate it by discarding 1 card to shuffle into the deck from your hand, field, or graveyard fusion materials that are listed on a fusion monster that specifically lists Roblox Hero Trident in its text. The only downside to this trap is that you gotta shuffle this fusion monster back into the extra deck during the end phase. But that shouldn't be a problem given that this is literally one of your last resorts, so you ought to make it count. I think the last thing I can say for the spells and trap cards in this section is that I spent all night working on this part of the script, and it's currently 4:46 in the morning and I'm still not done. Moving on to the fusions, we got Roblox Hero Ignited Trident, who requires both Roblox Hero Trident and 1 fire attribute monster, who also has to be a Marine Martian. You must special summon this card from your extra deck by shuffling the required materials listed on it into your deck. They must be on the field in order to do this, and can't simply be in your hand. Also, this entire effect applies to almost all the fusion monsters I'll be covering. As for this particular fusion monster, its effects allows it to gain 300 attack and defense for each card on the field, essentially making your opponent shit their pants whenever this monster shows up on the field. Of course, this will only work if they're a woman though. For legal reasons, that's a joke. Next up is Roblox Hero Aquatic Trident, who acquires the ace himself and 1 water attribute Marine Martian. This card's effect lets it gain attack and defense equal to the difference in life points between you and your opponent. This is a pretty decent effect, not gonna lie, almost as good as the previous monster. And the reason I say almost is because that life point difference goes both ways. And if your life points are less than 1,000, why would this guy be one of your first options when this is all he can do? Roblox Hero Solid Trident is up next, and yes, I was rock solid when making his name. He requires both Roblox Hero Trident and 1 Earth attribute Marine Martian. Once per turn, you can destroy 1 card your opponent controls, with the cost ultimately being nothing. And if any monster or card effect were to cockblock Solid Trident's effect, then you can negate that card's activation and destroy it. This card has a pretty good destruction effect, and even comes with a built-in negate as well. It's even better that I get to say the same thing about the next card, which is Roblox Hero Angelic Trident, who requires Roblox Hero Trident and 1 Wind attribute Marine Martian. Once per turn, you can discard 1 card from your hand or field to the graveyard to banish 1 card from your opponent's hand. And now that I've said this effect out loud, I want to retract my earlier statement, mostly because this effect is mild at best and downright useless at worst. I mean seriously, how useful is banishing 1 card from your opponent's hand gonna be when they could just use something like this? Next up on the disappointment train is Roblox Hero Glooming Trident, who requires Roblox Hero Trident and a dark attribute Marine Martian. His effect is about as underwhelming as you would expect, only negating the effects of all face-up cards your opponent controls, which is mostly useful if your opponent controls this, or this, and maybe this to some degree, but other than that it's pretty mid. Roblox Hero Shining Trident is up next, and his effect allows you to shuffle 1 card from your graveyard back into your deck. Oh no, that's his entire effect, which sounds pretty tragic until you realize that the card can literally be any card, ranging from your typical monster, to a spell, to a trap, to a freaking pendulum card. And no, I will not be making pendulum Marine Martians. The last dual compound fusion we'll be talking about is Roblox Hero Divine Trident, who acquires Roblox Hero Trident and 1 Divine Marine Martian. His effect is pretty simple, as you take no battle damage from attacks involving this card, and if a monster you control were to be destroyed by battle, then you can banish 1 card from your graveyard instead. Simple, easy, moving on. Roblox Hero Liquid Trident is the first of the triple compound fusions, requiring Roblox Hero Trident and 1 fire and water attribute Marine Martian. He comes with 2 effects, the first letting him gain 500 attack and defense for each card on the field, which would really make your opponent shit bricks if you're currently playing in the Master Rule format, and his second effect allows you to gain life points equal to the attack of any monster this card destroys by battle. Both are pretty solid, but not as much as me when I'm talking about Roblox Hero Majestic Trident, who lets you banish 1 card from your opponent's hand and then another from their field, virtually screwing with their resources as well as their pawns. Although my only gripe with this monster is that I didn't add the negate protection effect that Solid Trident had. Oh, also this monster requires 1 Roblox Hero Trident and 1 Earth and 1 attribute Marine Martian. Roblox Hero Cataclysmic Trident is the last of the triple compound fusions, and requires Roblox Hero Trident and one dark and light attribute Marine Martian. He cannot be destroyed by battle, which is fairly good if you're playing defense, and he can still negate the effects of all face-up cards your opponent controls, although it comes with an added bonus of negating a monster or card effect that was activated and destroying it. Pretty solid effects all around, but not as solid as Roblox Hero Environmental Trident, who requires Roblox Hero Trident and one fire, water, earth, and wind attribute Marine Martian. He has the same summoning requirements as every fusion before, but unlike them, when this card is special summoned, you get to draw cards equal to the number of cards on the field. Even better is that you gain 1,000 life points for each card you draw. But now that I think about it, this effect could definitely backfire if you have less than 10 cards left in your deck, but we can worry about the complications later, and instead focus on our next fusion, and also the last, Roblox Hero Chromatic Trident, who requires Roblox Hero Trident and 7 different Marine Martians. His effect lets him gain 700 attack and defense for each Marine Martian on your field and in your graveyard, in which he can copy the effects of one card from your hand, field, or graveyard until the end phase. And if for whatever reason this card were to leave the field, then you get to special summon all the monsters that were used to special summon it in the first place. Now while that was a lot, it was all very good. You got stat boosts, a solid once per turn effect, and you even got a contingency plan if he wasn't enough. The last 3 fusion monsters are regular fusion monsters that only require polymerization and any other fusion spell or trap you may have. The first of these 3 is Roblox Hero Trident Soldier, who can attack up to the same number of times, equivalent to the amount of materials used for its fusion summon. Oh, and he also requires Roblox Hero Trident as well as 1 or more monsters. The second is Roblox Hero Trident Mage, who requires Roblox Hero Trident and 1 spellcaster. Its effect allows you to add 1 spell or trap that specifically lists Marine Martian in its text after you destroy an opponent's monster by battle. The third and final fusion monster this time is Roblox Hero Trident Forger, who requires Roblox Hero Trident and 1 warrior monster. His effect lets you tribute this card for 1 Roblox Hero fusion monster from your extra deck after you destroy an opponent's monster by battle. The only catch is that you have to shuffle that monster back into the extra deck during the end phase, and if it seems like I'm rushing, that's because I am. Don't worry, it's nothing personal. I just wanted to make sure you couldn't realize the fact that I'm about to repeat a joke I made in my last video. Wake up! After killing your eardrums, you probably expect me to transition into the next section of this video, but instead, I think it's time I subvert your expectations and bring your attention back to something that you've probably forgotten to do throughout this section. Now granted, I won't fault you too much for forgetting about this little icon, since I did at one point as well, but since I'm about done explaining each card, let's see how many shots contributed to your obituary. Jesus Christ. I swear to God, if anyone actually took me seriously when I proposed this drinking game, then they're literally a product of natural selection. Now that I've explained the entire Marine Martian archetype, I might as well give some creators commentary for it, basically going over my thought process, how I did it, and some changes I would make to certain cards. Also, I might implement the same concept to another project I'm currently working on. To start with, the reasons I made this archetype were, number 1, to prove that I could make a better version of the Neospatians, and number 2, because I had to study for marine biology tests and this was my favorite way to do it. I'll admit, the first one makes me come off more like an arrogant asshole than anything else, but you gotta admit, the second reason is perfectly justified. Of course, my thought process when creating these cards was to create something relatively similar and at some points damn near identical to the Neospatians. Essentially, I was ripping off the archetype, kinda like the situation with these 2 films. And while that may sound bad, some good did come out of it. The first good thing being the fact that I was able to reintroduce a concept I made back in middle school called the Roblox Hero archetype. It was pretty much just these guys with my own creative spin on it, although I did create a bunch of original superheroes using these guys and anything related to them as a blueprint. And who knows, I might make a part 4 to this video detailing that archetype as well, but I doubt I'll have enough time for a video that long in the future. Another thing I wanted to mention was that the goal of each Marine Martian and their effects were to coincide with what their real life counterparts actually do, to a certain extent. Like Cosmic Coral actually rejuvenates the amount of monsters in the deck, and you as the player through your life points. Kind of like how coral reefs help marine wildlife and humanity as a whole. You also get spell cards like Salinity Change, Solar Phytoplankton, and Meticulous Food Web, encapsulating the various aspects of my seafood, whether it be the change in seawater temperature, to primary producers for many ecosystems, to even the different graphs you get when you look up the term food web. The trap cards even do this as well. And let's not forget that Ace Monster is literally a part of a keystone species that's integral to both marine life and ours, being named after a demigod who can control the sea. Of course, the fusions don't really apply to this area, and only certain serve to showcase my lack of creativity in making these cards, but if I were going to make some changes to avoid copyright infringement, they would definitely be on cards like Marine Martian, Starburst Seagull, Constellar Jellyfish, Astronomer, and Riptide, and also damn near half of the spells and traps, as well as all the fusion monsters. I will mostly just switch around certain effects and make them much more unique, which is kind of a losing battle when you remember how this archetype was made in the first place. But you know what? I'm the kind of guy to see a girl that looks like this and say I can fix her, so I might as well apply that same logic to my own hobbies. It could get me to stop choking my chicken.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Also, I was serious in one of my last videos for creating a Deadman comic. Here's a behind the scenes pic of it. Real quick, if y'all enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe so I can flex on the hoes and the haters. Also, follow my socials so that you'll know when I post a new video. And if you really enjoy my content, then consider checking out my Patreon, where I give weekly behind the scene updates as well as an archive for all my videos. You can also get your name featured on the end credits, as well as early access to the first 2 minutes of all my videos, which also include this one. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next week.